So this week's episode of Shangri-La Frontier sees the return of Weathermon, just in a pretty unique way. I feel like some people are going to try to call this episode filler, probably the most pointless word in all of anime terminology, because I really don't think people know what it is. Because at the end of the day, what is Shangri-La Frontier's story? It's players playing a video game and having personal quests. For Sunraku, it's most likely trying to defeat all of the unique monsters and whatever else he determines is a, adventure of the week for him. But the show's bigger than just Sunraku. And characters like Katsu or even Pencil are people that are the only reason we are able to defeat Weathermon, because obviously he wasn't able to do that by himself. So to have an episode that's just dedicated to them, there is some very funny stuff with the game developers at the end of the episode, and that's probably my favorite point. But at the end of the day, it was about, having someone who is a professional pro gamer who is, we had to learn a lot more about him in this episode, about where he wants to go and how he's using Shangri-La as kind of like a stepping stone to get a head start, because the upcoming game that his fighting league is going to be playing a lot uses the same game engine, so I can get a head start here, while also having the reflection of, it's interesting how both Sunraku and Pencil didn't think I would be able to do what Sunraku did, and he's even questioning, could I have defeated Weathermon if I was put in Sunraku's shoes? Great stuff. And then you also have a girl whose entire goal in this game was due to, this NPC connected to Weathermon, and where does she go next, and just her trollish nature. It was a very enjoyable episode, and unfortunately, I know how the anime community is, because Sunraku wasn't anywhere to be seen, or because Sunraku didn't take one extra step towards the next boss. There will be some people who call this filler. We really gotta cancel that term, because it really has lost all meaning. I thought this was a great episode. I thought, if anything, it was a nice debriefer. We've had some intensity this season, and it's honestly nice to show that these characters can exist in this show without Sunraku having to be around. A lot of shows can't say that when they have this type of formula, but Shangri-La, it hits different. Of course, if you want to support my work and see my full thoughts to these episodes, we do have the Patreon, where we got those full live reactions if you're so interested. So, out of the three parts that were this episode, the very end was my favorite, just because it was comedy gold. But if I'm looking at what was my favorite part in terms of these two, in terms of what they were offering, I gotta give it to Katsu. And he's probably my least favorite out of the three. Not because, I think he's a bad character. I just, out of the three, he's my least favorite, just for no particular reason. It was interesting getting some information, because basically he's just grinding out, because at the end of the Weathermon fight, he lost 20 levels because of the one item he had to use to get, the buff or whatever, right? So he's out here grinding some eels or some serpents, whatever. And if we do remember, when him and Sunraku were fishing and, training to get up their levels to be able to fight Weathermon, he did warn him about, hey, there's some crustaceans, there's some nasty things in here. And the idea that it's not really jealousy, it maybe is a bit of envy and questioning, because at the end of the day, Sunraku isn't the best gamer in the world. He isn't. But Sunraku is a very unique gamer that can do things probably only he can, just because of the way his mind operates. Sunraku going up against Weathermon by himself would have ended in him dead. The only reason he had the opportunity to go one-on-one with Weathermon is because of what the other two were doing and keeping the mount preoccupied. But I do truly believe only Sunraku was able to beat Weathermon out of the three of them in terms of that straight one-on-one combat. And it's not necessarily because I think he's so much better in all these different ways. It's just he is a lunatic in a unique way that a unique monster like that needed. If Katsu went up against it, I don't know, I just feel like despite his obvious very talented skill set, he's more suited for more player versus player. I think that's where his true combat lives. And it's interesting, like I said at the start of the video, about how the game engine that SLF uses is the same engine that this new upcoming game that the pro fighting community is going to be raving about soon. So getting a head start and learning mechanics and stuff that will be able to transfer over, because you could even say that the best example I could probably give is one Call of Duty to the next, if it's still within the same type of studio and dynamic. Now, Call of Duty changes so much these days, but back in the day, you could easily see how practicing before the new one comes out most likely would transfer over. The idea of such a realistic where you're moving and getting all these skills, yeah, it absolutely would transfer over. And honestly, I just liked what they did there. And then when it comes to Pencil, she has this connection with the NPC, and like I used to mention when we were talking about the whole Weathermon quest line back in the day, we have video games that make people cry right now. The choices. I mean, I can think of Telltale's The Walking Dead, a lot of BioWare games, stuff like that, where you choose decisions, you get connected to those characters. If you're actually interacting with them in VR, you're going to have an even deeper connection. So it's interesting watching someone who almost loses her reason to play this game, and then in a very trollish way, you know, is like, you know what, I'm gonna find my next thing. First things first, we're gonna scam this man out of his items. No, I promise you, Siger Zero said we gotta go hunt the wolf. Anyway, I'm just gonna steal from you. Like, that stuff is just really good, and I think it just humanizes these two even more. And I think what I like about the episode is that Sunraku wasn't on screen. They were able to keep my interest this entire episode without the lead character being on screen other than flashbacks or referencing him by name. Like, it's not like he was actively like talking or doing anything in present day. And that's really cool because, you know, currently we're building a party that doesn't have them in it to tackle the next boss. So it's nice to remind us that they are still here and their lives aren't dependent on Sunraku being around. I do really appreciate that. Best part for me was, though, the game developer stuff. Buddy has, he says it's like stomach pills, but like, I don't even know, man. Like, acid maybe? Like, what is he popping to make him deal with these goofballs? He braces himself, comes in, and they're fine. They're like, no, actually, we expected someone would eventually destroy the clones, the shadows. And to be honest, the party layout's really good. Like, this is who we would want. I'm thinking to myself, okay. They made me drop my guard. I'm like, okay, I guess they're not going to be violent. Record scratch. Except the one thing I am pissed about, you buff their stats, and I'm like, you're telling me that what they defeated was harder than it should have been because, once again, one of the developers is like, well, the wolf should be smart. My man is gonna, at some point, come in, not with a little bottle, he's gonna have a goddamn jar of pills, just like shoveling it back by the mouthful, and I'm so excited. We don't see this group often, and I think that's probably for the best because unless we're doing something major in the game, like defeating the first part of a quest or defeating a big boss, it's probably best not to like overly extend their scenes because it might grow boring or stale. It's kind of like leaving the viewer wanting more with these characters is better than showing us too much and feeling like they're distracting. They've shown us at the appropriate times. I think this was one of those, and it was very funny. I just feel so bad for this bastard. He needs to really bring much more pills if he's going to survive this. You let me know what you thought of this week's episode of SLF. I thought it was fantastic. I expect many to call it quote-unquote filler, but you see why I disagree. You let me know your thoughts though down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Void, Subject 3, Sarnik, and we also have Jade. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. You all have a good one.